Today's topic, we're going to do and I, by the way, am hosting Parker here. We are going to be introducing John Hahn, our CFO, DK, who you guys have heard run these. And unfortunately, you guys will not have as good of a moderator today because he can't moderate himself. But don't worry, we'll be back to our regular programming in future ones. But we'll be interviewing the interviewer, DK, our head of IR. And then last but certainly not least, Pete, who is our head of research and content and behind some of the dank memes that you guys see coming out along with the rest of our team. The intern obviously does his own thing and is no relation to Pete whatsoever. Okay, so before we get started and jump right in, I do want to remind the audience that remarks today during the spaces may include some forward-looking statements. But of course, these forward-looking statements are subject to risks that could actually, or that could cause actual results to be materially different. And then last but not least, nothing discussed here will be considered material non-public information. And if you want to take a look at some more of our risk factors, check in on our SEC filings on our website. And let's see, any other legal claims I need to cover here?
All right, you did a great job with the forward-looking statement disclaimer.
Perfect. All right. So to start off here, as I mentioned, we're going to be interviewing three folks from our team, three very critical folks of the team. So I'm going to hand it over to John real quick to just tell us a little bit about yourself, John. Who are you? What have you done? And I don't know. Joseph and I have this meat and vegetable thing going, so we'd love to hear kind of where you fall in that debate at the end.
Love it. Yeah, happy to give a quick background. So yeah, I'm the CFO here at DFDV. I've basically spent half my career in TradFi and half in crypto/DeFi. So starting from the beginning, I studied finance at NYU Stern. Then I worked at Goldman Sachs on the equity research team, covering TMT, which is tech, media, telecom. And then afterwards, went to the investment side, the buy side, and worked at two different funds for quite a few years. Then I was product strategy at an AI company, and then found my way to Kraken as head of strategic finance, where I had the opportunity to meet all you guys, and then was also at Binance as VP of Finance and regional head of finance for Europe, Middle East, Africa, LATAM, Canada, and was most recently a CFO of a layer one blockchain company, and now at DFDV. I'll hand over to DK.
Whoa. Hold on.
Oh.
You're what do you prefer to eat during the week?
Oh, meat. Meat only.
No, eat. Meat only. All right. We're
I don't
eat
eat green things in general.
Just envisioning John with like one ribeye a day for dinner.
Just one? At least. That's breakfast.
Oh man. All right. I guess I'm up.
Yeah, you're up. Jump in.
I am. My name is Dan, actually, not DK, but they call me DK here. I've had other nicknames over the years. In college, I actually went by Danky Kang, because I had a little DK shirt, and that was the nickname that stuck. So I'm the IR guy. You guys have heard me before if you've tuned in. Prior to this, I was most recently the head of strategy at Kraken. It was a role I held for a brief period of time, though I was on the corporate strategy team for most of my 3 years at Kraken. That's actually where I worked pretty closely with Joseph during his time as chief strategy officer. And funny, like backstory, I actually got the look from Kraken back in late 21, early 22, because one of my close friends from high school was leading strategy at the time. You guys here at DeFi Dev Corp know exactly who he is, and he actually recommended me for a role there. And I actually interviewed with John Hahn. John was the first guy to interview me, and I remember that meeting well because it was my first time really interacting with what I felt were crypto native finance people. I was just so impressed with the team. Like you sort of get used to being the crazy crypto guy in the room, particularly if you've been in the space for a while, and then all of a sudden I'm in this room and I'm like, oh, I'm the crypto noob here. So it was pretty cool. Prior to Kraken, I worked on the buy side for about 7 to 8 years at a firm called AO Asset Management. I was covering TMT stocks, think large cap internet, advertising, e-commerce, China internet, the works. Kind of got that job by luck. The firm was looking for a junior guy, and a girl I was dating at the time was in sales and threw my name in the hat when she got a call from, and they're like senior internet analyst at the time, said something like, I need someone who can read an S1 and not be totally annoying. So she threw my name in, which was, super romantic. I actually tanked that interview too. Like my first stock pitch was terrible, but it turns out the other guy who was in the running for the role said like, hey, I'm only going to work this job for a year and then I'm leaving to start my own fund. So, bold move. So there I was on the buy side at like 23 years old, not knowing a thing that I'm doing, blindly adding back stock-based comp to EBITDA. Had to throw in a bad finance joke. And anyway, that's my major professional stuff. The most important stuff I always say for last, which is I'm a dad to 2 twin girls who turned 2 in a month, and married to a pretty badass competitive swing dancer. That's my Spark Notes life story right there. Oh, and on the meat versus vegetable debate, I always say, why not both? Why not the ribeye and the giant bowl of vegetables?
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks, DK. All right, Mr. Pete, over to you.
Cool. Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Pete Humiston. I am the head of research and content at DeFi Dev Corp. My quick background, and it's funny, like everyone who's speaking here and really at the company I've in some way tied to them, maybe a little differently than others, but nonetheless, my formal background, I got a degree in finance from Indiana University. Started my career in equity research sales at an investment bank, Jefferies. Funny enough, on the sell side, Dan was actually a client of mine on the buy side. And so him and I, before ever joining DeFi Dev Corp, we knew each other, which was really funny. And so I worked on Wall Street for a number of years and ultimately made the jump over to Kraken. Joseph here was nice enough to hire me and bring me on to the account management team. So worked in a little bit of a sales capacity for a short period of time before ultimately transitioning to Kraken Intelligence research team, which I was a research analyst alongside Parker for a few years before then being asked to lead the team as head of research. Was at Kraken for 3-4 years. Ultimately, I decided to step away and take a little bit of a breather. I was research and content lead at a RWA tokenization stablecoin startup for a little bit. Did a very brief period at Gauntlet, and when I found out that this crew, which in my mind is a wrecking crew, was starting up the next generation corporate treasury model, I basically came to them and begged them for a job, and they were nice enough to give me the look. So that's how my quick little journey and more about me. As far as food preferences, I would say I'm low carb. I will eat carbs out of the United States only because they're not full of preservatives and pesticides that totally screw up my GI tract. But yeah, I love steak. I got a ribeye in the fridge. I'm gonna whip up after this.
I'm gonna put Pete on the spot here. For those of you who don't know, Pete is like ripped. Dude is shredded.
Still?
That's
I just
right.
eat
We
my
haven't seen him
vegetables.
in years. I don't know.
That's true.
Well,
Just
I'll continue to believe that he's shredded, and maybe he can, if he's skinny right now, he can bulk up for the next one, next time we meet.
Perfect.
All right.
just
Cool.
super
So,
super quick thing,
Got it.
Parker, right before you jump into the next thing, is really want to emphasize for the audience that, we went out of our way to all be here. None of us are here because this was a backup because our publicly listed dropshipping company wasn't working out. We literally went out of our way to acquire this public company via the transaction and do everything because this is the vision of everybody on the team to bring TradFi to DeFi. So wanted to call that out here for the record, because I think there will be a lot of kind of random companies out there with like, call it below $5 million market cap, buying stuff and saying they're like us, which they're not.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the other point that I want to make here is that, Joseph and I, when we were contemplating this idea now, I think Joseph has the counter, but it's like 118 days ago is when Joseph, we really wanted to build a kind of a, SEAL Team 6 of people that we really trusted, really believed in, and really knew that we could count on. So we have a small team. Each and every person is highly, highly critical to our success. And, we've all worked together in many different ways. We've been in the trenches together for many years. And, apparently I didn't actually even know about the Pete and DK connection prior to Kraken, but we've all kind of been working in the same circles on the TradFi side. I was on the buy side as well. Actually did a decent amount of bond trading with Jeffries, although on the algo side back in my day. So, we kind of come from similar backgrounds and have worked together for a number of years. And I think it's very important when you're building a team in any area, not just treasury strategy, but any company, find people that you can trust, that without a shadow of a doubt, when the chips are down, you can trust them and they will have your back no matter what. And so I think that's really important. As any entrepreneurs here think about building teams, that's just such a key component.
Amen.
But okay. Jumping in, next question to run around the room, and I'm going to do this one in reverse order. So Pete, you're up. Tell us about your crypto origin story. How did you get into crypto? Pete's marked as a listener now. Okay, I'm gonna kick it over to DK to answer the question.
I can start off. I guess I got into crypto back in 2013, around the end of college. Same guy who got me into Kraken actually got me into crypto. So, at the time I kind of brushed it off. I was a math major in college, so it was somewhat compelling to me, but I sort of viewed it at the time as, like many other people, I'm sure, as maybe just risky or whatever have you. Didn't fully do my homework. I was just, college kid. So played with some Bitcoin, traded way too much, didn't think much of it. And then 2017 is really when I started to go a bit deeper, right? You had the ICO boom. I started to just, read a bit more about smart contracts. That's when I started buying ETH pretty regularly. That cycle, I actually even got roped into Saya coin. I don't know if it's because I was like too deep in the weeds on AWS and Microsoft and Google Cloud and all the stuff I was doing at the fund, but the idea of just like decentralized data storage was just the coolest concept to me. And of course that played out the way it played out. Last cycle, I guess I really got into .eth domain names, which is all I'm really going to say there. And of course, towards I'm going to say the tail end of last cycle is when I finally made my way over from TradFi into crypto. So that's a little bit of my my story arc there.
Amazing. Well, as long as you didn't get into Dentacoin back in the day, I think you're good.
How can you tell your story without talking about WIF?
Oh yes, of course. I called out there. So, this is a good one. I remember. I guess this would have been towards the end of towards the end of 23, and like I messaged Joseph about WIF and say, hey, I think this is a good idea. I remember he literally messaged me back and was just like, what is this thing? And I was like, you're either with us or against us. And he was like, I'm not touching this shit. Like, get this away from me. And yeah, I mean, it was a play that happened to work out well for me. I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about meme coins later on in this, but I was obviously very bullish on meme coins at the sort of onset of this cycle.
Yeah, and DK's Slack handle at Kraken for like years was how to hat. So he never took
Yes,
it off.
that is true. And actually, for my girl's first birthday, a couple of my friends got them with hats. That tells you how, I guess, roped into this I got.
So DK's kind of been pushing pretty overtly for us to add WIF to the Treasury, and actually, I think he just wants us to be a pure play WIF Treasury, but he's kind of, John here, our CFO, has been like, "Hey man, a little too crazy." So
No, as we said at the beginning, we disclaim any obligation to update any statements that we make on this call. So I'm going to ignore that comment.
All right. Pete, I think you're back now, so you want to jump in with your crypto origin story?
Of course. Yeah, I was saying I was looking for a way to make money, came across Dentacoin, and no, I'm kidding. I wasn't. I wish I could say that I was part of the 2013 crew, like seemingly a lot of people say they are. They're like, oh, I discovered Bitcoin in 2013. But I had heard of. I was in college. I had heard of the Silk Road. Curiosity killed the cat. I just went on to the deep web and was just kind of like was just curious. And then of course, that's when I had first heard about Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin had its first big run up to like $1,000 around that time. I had totally written it off. It wasn't until 3 years later. I was actually I was standing outside of a concert, waiting in line in New York by myself. So I threw on my headphones and I came across an Andreas Antonopoulos podcast, one of the real Bitcoin OGs, in my opinion. And I think he's onboarded tons of people. I'm not sure where he is about these days, but immense respect for what he has done for the industry, and basically like fell down the rabbit hole from there. Kind of read up on Ethereum as well at that time, 2016. I remember I remember trying to set up a Coinbase account actually when ETH had I think gone from like $1 to $7, and in the midst of trying to get onboarded to Coinbase and just running into roadblock after roadblock, I watched Ethereum go from $7 to $40. And me being a TradFi guy, I'm like, the trade is done, the thing is run, like it's over. I've missed the ship, and needless to say, it was the exact opposite. But nonetheless, that really kind of kickstarted my journey. I just became obsessed with crypto, and then for 2 years, just consumed everything until ultimately jumping ship full time to Kraken in 2018.
Pete actually, when he was in sales at Jefferies, took me. I remember there was one event. We went to an MMA fight, which is pretty cool, and he gave me a copy of Digital Gold, book by Nathaniel Popper. It was pretty cool. At the time, it was like there weren't very many people on the TradFi side that I knew were into crypto, so it was cool.
Wow, I totally forgot about that, but thanks for the shout out.
I still have that copy, actually. I remember you're like, hey, you can give this back to me whenever you're done reading it. I think it's still sitting on my bookshelf somewhere.
Cool. We'll make that happen one of these days.
Wow. Very cool. So, Pete, do you have a favorite meme coin other than WIF?
I'm going to say Doge just because it's so generic,
Attaboy.
so generic, so basic, but that really kind of kickstarted the where we are today. So it would only be it'd be irresponsible to not pay homage to Doge.
Amazing, love it. All right, Mr. John.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, back in like the early days when I was working at Goldman and then the investment funds, generally, you give price targets as like plus 30%, minus 30%, buy, sell, kind of hold. And I was like, that's a 12-month target price. It's only going to move 30%. So I remember reading like all these FT articles about Bitcoin and all that good stuff. So in 2013, I had a Mt. Gox account. And I remember like, I was like, oh, you can only trade, I forgot the exact number, like, oh, $5,000 a day. How does one trade more? So I sent them like my passport and other information to get like the advanced like pro trader, like you could do $20,000 a day, whatever it was. So I still have that email. I think I've shown that to you, Parker and Joseph. Fortunately, I didn't have any money on that account when it went bankrupt, but that was when I first sort of really initially got into crypto. And then I've dabbled in it since like throughout that time, through 2018, and then obviously literally just working, at Kraken in 2020, and ever since then. So yeah, it's been all over the place, but I probably should have joined earlier, but was waiting for the market to mature more, I guess, before jumping full in.
Amazing. Wow. Mount Gox account. That's that's pretty good. Now, did you not have any coin? I'm going to call you out here. Did you not have any coins on there because you swept them out to cold storage, or because you had already sold and hadn't bought anything, or hadn't bought anything?
No comment.
All right, cool. Okay, so next question here, and Pete, we'll go with you first on this one since you haven't gone first yet. Let's talk a little bit about Sol and Solana, the ecosystem, both the asset and the ecosystem. What makes you so bullish? Like, why is this a good treasury strategy vehicle? And yeah.
I mean, what makes me bullish on the asset and the ecosystem itself? I mean, I think that there's a million different ways to really answer it, but I'll just put it in two. I think Anatoly's innovation, proof of history, is certainly it. Basically, just saying, let's prioritize performance. Let's throw a bunch of hardware at it. Nielsen's law, Moore's law will make all of this more decentralized with time. It's easier to decentralize over time than to scale. So that's one. And then two is honestly, ETH complacency, .ETH complacency. I say that as someone who in 2017, 2018 was, I wouldn't say an Ethereum maxi, but I had saw the potential and understood the potential of smart contracts, and I truly believed in it. And I think Ethereum's success over the years got in the way of innovating, and that was, I think, it really opened the door for someone else to kind of come along and steal the show and attract new developers and attract new talent and capital. And I think that's something too that you see within the Solana ecosystem itself. Anatoly always says, like, the job's not done. It's constantly reiterized internally in the ecosystem that, you can't ever get complacent. You got to keep shipping, keep building, keep innovating, or else you'll get lazy and someone else will come along and eat your lunch.
Amazing. IBRL is a lifestyle. I love it. All right. Popcorn. John, I'll grab you. Talk to me about Sol. Why are you so bullish on Sol?
You mean for the treasury strategy? I'll talk about the treasury strategy and why it relates to this. So I think there's three parts to it. Obviously, the technology is fantastic. Pete already talked about a few parts, but obviously the low transaction costs, high TPS, scalability, the ability to buy meme coins for less than a penny, huge utility to the entire world. But obviously, literally, there's like all the stuff being built on top, right? So it's really like actually technologically innovative, and I'm sure other people will talk to that. I think in addition to that, it's great to have like a great MacBook, if you will. But I think the ecosystem on top of that, the wide adoption, people are continuing to innovate, build entire businesses off this thing, and decentralized apps and all that great stuff. So that's like basically think of the Apple App Store. It's cool, it's nice, but without the apps, it doesn't really work. And that's where that ecosystem play is quite interesting. And then the last part is just the market cap. Like from a treasury strategy perspective, it doesn't work as well if the market cap is like $100 million, right? Because frankly, we would already have bought 100% of the entire market cap of a $100 million coin. So these three parts, the technology, something that we as technologists, business people, capitalists can all believe in, because there's a true utility and adding value from a technology aspect and innovation to society. Then the ecosystem, because we're all crypto native and we want to be working with additional people in the ecosystem, not just only stacking Solana, but using partnerships as a way to increase our ability and cadence of stacking Solana is hugely powerful. And that's where the ecosystem is really important for them. And lastly is that market cap, like we talked about. Like this doesn't really work with, it probably does work to a certain extent, but the cost of acquiring a public company, doing a lot of the legal stuff, all that great stuff is the same for a coin with 100 million market cap or a coin with 100 billion market cap. I'll stop there.
Nice. All right, cool. DK.
I'm going to give my non-IR answer to this, which is I'm bullish on meme coins.
Shocker.
Shocker. All right, I won't name which ones outside of the one that Joseph called out. But look, I spent actually a lot of time in the last couple years, both personally and while I was at Kraken, trying to just understand why meme coins were a thing. And I got really, I'm going to say, like, compelled by this idea of financial nihilism more broadly. And like these patterns pop up everywhere. I remember reading the stat that was like, if you look at 0 day to expiry options volume, 0 day to expiry, I think made up like, those contracts made up 51% of the S&P index's options volume in Q4 of last year. And what does that tell you? That's people just like wildly speculating, right? Retail going absolutely bananas with this stuff. You see it in online gambling revenues. I forget the exact stats, but it's up somewhere like, the size of the market is up like 7x over the last few years. I think DraftKings themselves went from like under 1 million active users just 8 years ago to over 10 million active users, right? Well over 10x. And I think this all stems from, I used to give this strategy onboarding talk at Kraken, which is like this, welcome to Kraken thing. And one of the more striking things I used to present was if you looked at the top 10 central bank balance sheets in the world, from 07 to today, the balance sheets have gone up somewhere around like 5x, 6x, I don't know. And like 10 or 15% of that increase was in response to the great financial crisis. The rest of it has happened since. And I don't even think Satoshi could have imagined how bad, obviously, the central bank manipulation would get. But, Bitcoin was literally made for this. And in my mind, meme coins are just these mini communities built around the same premise that the system is broken. And you might think our meme is a joke, but no, honestly, central banks are the joke. So, I could put a few $1,000 in a savings account or 401k and earn a steady single-digit percentage, but that doesn't suddenly mean I can afford a house or afford to buy groceries or any of that. Maybe after a decade, I can buy a carton of eggs. So for me, this whole idea was like the promise that our generation, Gen Z millennials were fed, and it was just kind of robbed of us. And meme coins are just a rallying cry of this very disenfranchised generation. Because hell, what's a better story than someone who made generational wealth off of bonk or whiff? We love to see that.
Man, that's pretty compelling. I love it. All right. Next question here, John. I'll call on you. What's something that most, getting a little more serious here, what's something that most investors misunderstand about crypto treasury vehicles? I know there's like a bajillion in one of them nowadays, so shed some light.
Yeah, so it seems like every single week there's a new one, which is great. I think, first off, the wider adoption of crypto by corporates in general is fantastic. And is one of the first steps to even larger companies adopting crypto. So I think we're all going in the same direction, which is a very positive direction. I think there's still, to your point, a lot of misunderstanding of how these things work and what does it mean to be a crypto treasury vehicle. I would say there's sort of mainly two types. There are allocators, which are just companies buying crypto. And that's great. That's great for adoption and shareholders and all that great stuff due to depreciation. Then there are operators, and that's more like DFDV. I mean, that is DFDV. So what is the difference? Operators actually execute, whether it's from a capital markets methodology, a technology methodology, or from even just the people building relationships, building partnerships to also grow token per share faster. So summarizing all that together, because we are an operator, not just an allocator of the treasury, we have three levers. There's capital. Can we raise capital efficiently to grow your Solana per share quickly? Then there's technology. Because we have our own validator, we obviously don't pay those fees to third-party validators. And can we do things from a technology standpoint, like adding mods to our validator, etc., to enhance yield. And there's also actually additional technology stuff which we haven't announced yet that can also further enhance yield. And lastly is the people/partnership angle. Because we are both crypto native and also very experienced with TradFi, are there things that we can do from a partnership angle and commercial angle to further grow Solana per share as well? And that kind of speaks to the prospective Kraken partnership and all that great stuff as a very kind of tip of the iceberg opportunity. So what I would say is, as people think about crypto treasury vehicles, they should break it down into those two slices. Are they an allocator or are they an operator? And if they truly are an operator, do they have the three legs of the stool? The capital ability, the technology ability, and the people ability to all enhance your Solana per share for us, and in the future when there's other vehicles out there for other tokens, whatever X token per share. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Good. Thank you. All right. I won't call on everyone for this one, but DK or Pete or even Joseph, do any of y'all want to add anything to that question? Question being, what is something that most investors misunderstand about crypto treasury vehicles?
I still think the importance of volatility is still misunderstood. This is despite the fact that I think Michael Saylor's done a great job over the last year of telling the story of volatility. But in general, I think a lot of folks are still too apologetic about volatility. You know, it's one of the chief criticisms I've gotten about crypto in general over the last, decade plus I've been in. Like, can't tell you the number of times, I'm sure you guys all relate, like people have said, ha, I told you about crypto in every single bear market, only to have to eat their words in the bull market. It's astonishing, right? So we firmly believe volatility is a feature. Own it, lean into it, don't apologize for it. And, you know, I remember Saylor said this at Strategy World recently. It's like every rich person you admire has volatility more than the S&P index. And why? Because they don't strip the volatility from their balance sheet. You know, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Joseph, our very own Solana Jesus, they all have massive volatility in their portfolios. And I think, that there has to be, my hope is that people start to do away with that really outdated, quote unquote, conventional wisdom.
That is a good one. Yeah. Okay. Next question here. And I will ask, Pete, I'll call on you first for this one. We've been moving really fast here. DFDV, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think we're at day like 118 or something since Joseph and I had our first conversation. So far, Pete, what are you most proud of that we've done?
Yeah, excellent question. Man, we just published actually an April 2025 recap that's on our blog. That is definitely worth checking out. I mean, I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts, but I think I'll just keep it super high level. I think that we've done an excellent job of just getting this thing up and running, coming in, acquiring an existingly listed Nasdaq company, working with their management team, coming together as a team, strategizing. How are we going to accelerate Solana per share growth, which is our key performance metric. Strategizing how are we going to differentiate relative to other similar corporate treasury strategies out there. Just getting into, I think, a better workflow and finding ways to integrate ourselves within the ecosystem and with the traditional financial crowd so that we can continue to kind of execute on our strategy and mission and our goals. And so, and it's only been, I think, like a month that I've been here, but in many ways, it feels like it's been almost a few years. Like one of the reasons why I joined DFDV is because, I say this being 100% like totally honest. I mean, it's a team of killers. It's a team of people who like to work hard, who like to play hard. They're very passionate about the ecosystem, incredibly competent, incredibly capable. no ego. So I think we've just done an excellent job just assimilating and getting set up, and also again working with the existing management team that was at Janover prior to the acquisition and rebranding to DeFi Dev Corp.
I love that. Yeah, I think maybe our work hours would equate to working here for about a year. So, or at least it'll soon be that in the next month or two.
You know what they say? It's
So
dog years in crypto, Parker. It's dog years.
that's right. Dog years, of course. All right. I want to actually hear from Joseph on this question, and then I'll go around to John and DK. But Joseph, do you mind answering that one as well?
It's hard to say one thing. Like when Pete was answering, I was like, bro, that's like a lot of stuff that you baked into this one answer, but I don't think he's wrong. It feels like we've gotten kind of lucky on a lot of stuff. From finding our way to Blake Janover, and the connection we had there. I thought that was great. Feels like we got lucky there. And then the like kind of running into Cosmo at Pantera also felt sort of lucky. Like he just sort of got the story and was willing to bet on it pretty big. Yeah, I don't know, it feels like every couple of days there's something where I'm like, wow, it's crazy that we did that, So I don't know, maybe that's a bit of a non-answer, but the team continues to impress me kind of over and over, and I don't know, feels very fortunate, I would say. Lucky almost.
Lucky as fuck, as I would like to say. All right. John, do you want to jump in on that question?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Here's the interesting answer. It's the vibes. Just kidding. Well, sort of. So I always think about the quote. I don't know who said this. Maybe it's Confucius. Maybe it's Will Smith. One or the other. He who says he can.
Scott, maybe.
Maybe Michael Scott. He who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. And I think the beauty of this team is we never say we can't. We always say we can, and then we figure out how. So to Pete's point, everyone on this team is a killer in the most positive way. We always work together to figure that out. And on the positive side, we also don't, or maybe not the positive side, but we also don't sleep. So we're always adding value to shareholders, even if it costs us, a few years down the road in terms of lifespan.
We're laying our lives down for our shareholder friends here.
That's what we do.
I'm making it up with vegetables, guys. Don't worry.
That's true, right? All right, DK.
Dude, Joseph probably gets enough fiber for the whole team as I think about it. I mean, just I'm still not over this whole recipe that he consumes on a daily basis. Yeah, personally, I think I'm most proud of the team that we've assembled. I won't go on a long rant about this, but it's very rare when you find yourself in an environment where you're surrounded by people who are motivated, intelligent, disciplined, and I don't know, it's such a unique combination of talent and so much, I'm going to say, combined crypto expertise on this team. Again, I find myself in the room saying I'm the relative crypto noob here among you guys, but that's saying something. So I would say it's the team.
I love it. Yeah, and I guess I'll jump in on this one and just give the same answer effectively. But what I really love about the team is every single person that we've hired, it took one phone call, and it was within 5 or 10 minutes into the call, it was clear that the person wanted to join, 10,000%. And so there wasn't an interview process, there wasn't this like long drawn out review cycle. It was conversation and person's in, and now maybe we got to spend a little time figuring out where they're going to sit, but the old saying of, figure out who you want on the bus and then you figure out where they're going to sit applies here. But being able to work with people that there's no trust building that you have to do after the fact, there's no ramp up period, we know immediately how this person's going to perform and react. It's just been a really cool thing to be a part of. So I'm really proud of that. But all right. So next question, this one's just for Pete. Actually, I'll also get DK's thoughts on it. But Pete, what metrics or signals are you watching most closely when it comes to the Solana ecosystem and the Sol token, I guess?
Yeah, of course. I mean, geez, there's no shortage of various different data points to be keeping your eye on to see how well not only Solana is performing on an absolute basis, but relative to peers. I mean, I would say like the things that I pay most attention to, and of course, there's more variability to some of these metrics than other. It's paying attention to the Nakamoto coefficient, or just taking a look and seeing what is the dispersion of validators geographically, the number of validators themselves, just keeping an eye on how Solana as a whole is progressing towards its decentralization, and of course with that too, looking at the various different validator clients. Like I think Fire Dancer is now somewhere like 5% of all validators, and that's it's great to have a second client, or at least at least two clients exist in case one ever kind of runs into some roadblocks. So paying attention to the various different decentralization metrics have been great, and I think that's always been I focus on that over the medium long term, largely just because it's always been a big critique of Solana. It's people are like, oh, it's not decentralized. Of course, this will always come from a crowd of people who will also never really be able to tell you and quantify, what is decentralization, or what does it take to be sufficiently decentralized. It's just a spectrum, and no one can seemingly we can't it's hard to reach in an agreement. But nonetheless, pay attention to that stuff. And then of course, like the more day-to-day, week-to-week stuff that lends insight into how the network is performing, and just kind of like demand. So looking at revenue, especially like revenue by chain, looking at things like the stablecoin supply, DeFi TVL, even things like tokenization, RWA TVL, keeping an eye out on more like kind of like fundamental stuff, or just like big signs that we're starting to see like real adoption on the institutional side of things. So you can look at fund flows into various different Solana products. Um, who is it? CoinShares, Meltem's company. They produce stuff every week that lends insight into just flows into Solana. And then, looking just again, keeping my eye out for other kind of like big signals. I think like this week, over the past week, we saw Van Eck talk about tokenized Treasury product. Robinhood's been talking about tokenization. There's various different stablecoin developments. PayPal was last year. I think there's been a few others, like more notably, that have started to pop up too. And so, yeah, there's a million different metrics, but nonetheless, like on the aggregate, and this is something that I'm going to be working on and looking to be pushing out pretty soon here, is Solana is seemingly, top of the charts, if not top of the chart across, I would say a dozen of useful metrics that can lend insight into just overall chain adoptions and trends. So, yeah.
Good one. I like it. So next person I want to ask that question to is DK, but I want to ask it from a different perspective. Crypto treasury strategies broadly, what kind of metrics do you think about a lot there?
Oh, all right. I like this one. It's a very IR question to ask, actually. So I mean, as I kind of think about it was interesting. We get this question a lot, right? Which is like, why have you chosen Sol versus ETH or Bitcoin or something like that? It's like probably the most common question I get over here is the is the IR guy. And obviously, I think to a more, I'm going to say like less crypto native audience, I have to remind folks like, oh, it's faster, cheaper, more scalable. There's this active, thriving ecosystem around DPIN payments. There's obviously the yield component, which I think is also pretty important. But like one of I think John touched on this a little bit earlier on the call, or at least alluded to it. One of the compelling parts about this is that there is no, or there was no, I should say, like very clear like market leader when it comes to Solana crypto treasury vehicles. There is one with Bitcoin, right? It's like very clear that MicroStrategy is the behemoth, and you've had these fast followers, and you've heard Saylor say this before too, where he says like you can choose to be the market leader, or you can choose to play it safe and be a fast follower, and they chose to be the market leader. And one of the things I like about going after Sol, yes, for all the reasons that Pete listed from a fundamental perspective, um, is that there is like, it's not like we came into this and had to go up against a MicroStrategy-esque kind of player. In fact, like we're aspiring to be that player, and we're aspiring to be the behemoth and the leader in this space. So not only is Sol like obviously under allocated relative to fundamentals, not financial advice, but I think that combination is really interesting. And the metric that I think folks should be really hyper focused on, that we've stated as our North Star, is SOL per share, and particular SOL per share growth. You know, I think there's going to be a lot, obviously there have been a lot of treasury strategies announced, not just in SOL, but in various different assets, and folks may go and accumulate on an absolute basis, but really on a per share basis is what you want to be paying attention to. So, how quickly can one company grow its SOL per share versus another, I think is going to be pretty important.
That's a great point. Yeah, token per share for any treasury strategy, I think, is the key metric. All right. Well, we're kind of coming towards the end here. So I've got one last round of questions, or one last question rather, for the room. And that is, and just real quick, maybe 60 seconds, but let's see, John, I'll call on you. What's a crypto take you believe that most people don't? A little spin on Peter Thiel's interview question.
Huh. Bear markets are good. Yeah, it sucks to lose money on a per token basis. But I think it helps to focus the narrative and efforts long term on projects and companies and blockchains, whatever you might call it, on the ones that work. Because obviously during bull markets, everybody and their mother has a token, everybody and their mother sort of has a blockchain. And in the future, everybody and their mother will have a token strategy. But in a bear market, that's when all the random players that actually truly have no idea what they're doing, whether it's on a blockchain, on a company, or a public company perspective, whatever it may be, really get washed away. And that's where you kind of long-term find the gold nuggets that you want to hold for many years, many decades to come.
I love it. Sounds like you're a Austrian disciple. I've been reading some Hayek or Mises or something.
I wish.
All right. Let's see. DK, same question.
I've man, I feel like when I was at Kraken, I'd often get asked by various executives, like, what's the next major trend, right? What's the next thing? What's going to be the next DeFi summer? What's going to be, is it gaming? Stuff like that. I have personally held a belief, sound weird, that like you'll actually get a major wave of consumer crypto adoption from fast food apps. And my reasoning on that is like fast food chains already run these like pretty massive low margin loyalty programs. They obviously move billions in transactions. You haven't really seen a lot of like brand resistance to experimentation, right? Like you've seen folks do stuff with NFTs and whatever have you. And I don't know, like you could see like a Chipotle points on chain in the US is, could be a thing. And, frankly, I don't know, like to the extent that any of these guys can save 2 to 3% on, payment processing fees and build brand engagement, they'll do it. So yeah, that's my take. And I bet they'll do it before someone like Goldman Sachs does.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. Move kind of used to moving faster, and having more retail consumer audience there. All right. Unfortunately, Solana Jesus dropped off, Joseph, so we'll have to get him to answer that question another time. But we'll wrap up here with Pete. You want to answer that question?
Cool. Yeah, sure. I think one of the best things you could do for your bags in a bull market, and especially a bear market, is go to an in-person event. Um, I had the pleasure of going to various different Solana hacker houses in the bear market, and it was there that I really developed my conviction in the ecosystem. You could see firsthand who was willing to tough it out, how many people were attending, just overall like vibe and sentiment. And I don't care what anyone says. You can't experience that and feel that and reap all the benefits of that unless you like go in person. There's no Cole, there's no influencer who can show you the light in the same way that you can discover it yourself by actually going in person to some of these events. So, I know it can be expensive to travel there and get a hotel, but look at it as just another investment. And yeah, that's my take.
I love that. Yeah, I'll second and piggyback off that. I went to Mountain Dow this past year in February in Salt Lake, and I didn't go every day. But boy, like there were, I stayed or came in a couple Fridays, and it's time to wrap up. I was leaving at like 7 p.m. on Friday, and the entire room was still like packed with people just working. And I'm like, and this was in February, market was down a little bit. Like, I was like, man, if these are the future builders of Solana, or current builders, they're hammering away at their keyboards. I am so freaking bullish on this ecosystem. And that was just really cool to see. Again, late Friday night, people were not ducking out; they were grinding. So yeah, I think if you can go to one of these, Mountain Dow type events, these hacker houses, spend some time around some builders, it's pretty infectious and really gets the excitement and the juices flowing. So we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Thanks to everyone who joined us. Really appreciate it. We'll do another one of these very soon. A bunch of us are going to be out at Accelerate in New York next week. So would love to bump into some of you and come up to us, say hi. We're not scary. We don't bite. Yeah, we'll go ahead and close it out.
One
Thanks,
last
everybody.
thing for me, Parker. Hey guys, for those of you who haven't already, I would encourage you to, of course, I'm sure you're already following us on Twitter, but go to our profile, and under the description there is a link to our Beehive blog where you can sign up for all the latest and greatest. You can of course get plenty of announcements just by following us on Twitter, but we'll be sending out research content and company updates through that blog. So please head on over and subscribe and join a list of several thousand other subscribers.
Thanks, Pete. Awesome. All right. See y'all.
See ya.
Thank you.